Dr. STB, would you please unmute?
Uncle, thank you for your Dhamma talk. I want to go back. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
I want to go back to the object of meditation, which is to do with the 32 parts of the body, but in this instance, concentrating on the scalp hair. If monks shave, may I ask Bangpa to explain why do the images of Buddha always show the hair, the scalp hair, tied up in a knot? And in fact, many images of the Buddha have got several knots of little knots of hair, and then there's a main bun, as it were. Could you kindly explain the significance of this? And why is it that the artists or the sculptors are perpetuating this aspect of the body that is obviously something that we want to rid ourselves of? Thank you.
Yeah, I used to ask that same question. I think you've pointed out one of the reasons. All statues and pictures of the Buddha are made by artists. And you've got to really ask them, why do they do that? Because our understanding is that the Buddha probably didn't have long hair up in a bun like that. He had shaven hair like the rest of the monks. And there are a few cases or incidences in the suttas and the Buddhist texts where people have been looking for the Buddha and he's sitting with the monks and they couldn't immediately recognize him because he's just sitting down with the other monks and they all look much the same. So our belief is probably, normally speaking, the Buddha had a shaven head and looked very much like other monks. But a Buddha does have what we call the 32 characteristics or marks of a great being, which all Buddhas have. And there are a few of them to do with hair. So one of them is that all the hair on his head, the hair comes out of the hair follicle and always moves in a clockwise direction. So it sort of curls out of the hair follicle. It's one of them. Another is that the Buddha has a sort of bump on his head, maybe due to the great energy, samadhi energy and pure energy of a Buddha's mind is sort of reflected in that way, has a slight bump on his head, and so on. There are these different characteristics of the body of a Buddha that artists over the years have taken and often exaggerated and made a big thing out of and highlighted in statues and pictures of the Buddha. So perhaps that's why, say, in some of the early art, we have different periods of Buddhist art, like any other kind of art in the world. And some of the early statues were very much influenced from the Greek tradition, because the Greeks went across to India, invaded India, became converted to Buddhism, and then started to make statues of Buddha, and they made them in similar ways to their own Greek statues of their Greek gods. So they would make the Buddha look a little bit like a Greek god, and they'd put curly hair on the Buddha, and the robes of the Buddha would sort of have a kind of be a bit like a Greek dress, and so on. But these are all artistic attributes that have come from the different artists over the centuries, the way the robes are, the way the hair is, and so on. They're not necessarily historically accurate, but they're, for various reasons, they've highlighted different things. And often the artist or the person sponsoring the artist, because they're important as well, often artists have a benefactor or somebody paying the money, and they often want the Buddha to be a certain way. So Some Buddhas are looking very kind of Western or Greek. Some Buddhas are looking more Chinese. Some Buddhas look more Indian or Sri Lankan or Thai. So there'll be cultural characteristics that come into it as well. And sometimes the attachment to the Buddha as a teacher, as the spiritual founder of what we call Buddhism, the religion, the teaching, people want to make the Buddha look a bit different or grander than others. So sometimes they give him the long hair with the top knot to sort of make him stand out from all the other disciples around him. So it is, I think, more a reflection on the artist and the people involved with the picture or the statue. It's a reflection of their own attachments, their own preferences, their own interests, because that's what art does, doesn't it? Art is a vehicle for our own mental states, and although art can be very inspiring and beautiful and helpful sometimes, but at the same time it may also be reflecting our own attachments, our own imagination. So I think that's how it's come about. And if you could somehow be transported back to the time of the Buddha, maybe you wouldn't see the Buddha sitting there with a long hair and a top knot. Maybe he looked just quite like ordinary Buddhist monks sitting with him.
Thank you.
I have a continuation of the question. Whilst we wait for a courageous soul to put out that path, the continuation of the question is with the meditation on the head care. Paul, could you perhaps enlighten us? There are a couple of friends here, and I see in the community that many of them come with the sick, and particularly patients with cancer. One of the features of a cancer treatment is the loss of hair. And perhaps if Paul could help and enlighten or give some instructive words for our friends in healthcare, helping these patients, and how they could guide their friends or relatives or their patients through this whole process.
Well, I agree. It could be very distressing for someone who's never meditated or understood much of the Buddhist teachings to get cancer and then lose your hair. Normally you'd say that must be a very distressing, disturbing experience. Speaking, in a detached way, we can say, well, it comes through that identification with the hair. You look in the mirror and your hair is so much a part of who you are and your look, and we give a lot of importance to it. So to lose it can be very distressing, and it's a sign that you're ill. You lose your hair, it's just reminding you you're ill. Maybe it's even the sense of loss is like, there's a foreboding there, I'm going to die, and so on. So the whole way they might look at it is that, this is really bad news for me. But interestingly, quite a few people have come to the monastery over the years who have cancer, and like many people, they often wear a wig sometimes when they've experienced hair loss from chemotherapy and so on. They go out in society, they don't feel comfortable with no hair, especially the women, but occasionally the men as well. So they wear a wig, but then they come to the monastery, and quite a few people have taken off their wigs in the monastery because they realise, there's all these monks and people with shaved heads here. It's quite relaxing just to allow myself to have no hair. So that can be quite liberating for some people, not all, but that can be a liberating experience. And particularly people who do meditate and find some inner peace through understanding the Dhamma on this inner level, understanding the impermanent nature of the body, changing their view to the body so they're not identifying with it so strongly in terms of just appearance, but recognizing the body is it's a useful thing to have. We need our body, but it's just that much, isn't it? Whether you have your hair or you don't have your hair, you can be happy, you can be at peace. You are not your hair. Your hair is ultimately just the earth element, and even if you don't get cancer, you start losing it the older you get. And even women lose hair, as far as I'm aware. Maybe not as much as men, but it does start to drop out a bit. It certainly goes grey. If you're a male, you go bald, your hair goes grey. It's ultimately something that we have to accept is impermanent, and we'll lose it in one way or another. So people who meditate often cope better with hair loss if they do get cancer. So if you're giving support to someone in that position, well, number one, give them a lot of love and acceptance and compassion, and try to gently introduce the fact that they are not their hair. The sum of their life and their goodness of them is not in their hair, it's in their heart. And whether they have hair or not, you can love them just the same and you can appreciate them just the same, and they themselves can be happy in themselves with or without hair. Reminding them of that, or introducing that way of thinking to them if they have never thought like that, just help introduce the idea to them. And you have to walk the talk. So if you're their friend, you have to say, look, you don't have hair. It doesn't change the way I relate to you. I love you just the same. I support you just the same. I'm here for you just the same, whether you have hair or not. And you might find it helps to take your relationship to a higher level. If maybe you're a husband or a wife and your partner loses their hair, if you can get beyond that and see, well, I'm going to love you and support you just the same as before, hair doesn't matter anymore. So it's one thing less to worry about. You're going right to the heart of a relationship. It's not hair, is it? It's other qualities. All the things you've done together over the years. You've helped each other. You've lived together, gone through the ups and downs of life. Now you're going through cancer. Hair is a minor factor in all that. So the more we can introduce this sense that hair is impermanent, it's not self, it's not the important thing, it's a liberating factor for people in the way they look at themselves, they look at life. Many people say they like coming to a monastery because in a monastery you don't have to put on a front. You go to work, you have to dress up, dress nicely, do your makeup, do your hair. It's all very superficial, and yet it's necessary because that's the way the world works. I understand that. But when you come into a monastery, you don't need to do that. It's not a place you have to put on a front. If you've got no hair, it doesn't matter. You're just one of the guys in a monastery because no one has any hair. So you come into a monastery, if you do have cancer and you've lost all your hair, you sit down and you're totally normal. You can feel liberated from hair. It's not a place where you go for a date or to impress people with the way you dress. Even though people still do that in monasteries sometimes, but if you really understand a monastery, a place where Buddhists are practicing, you don't have to do that. You don't have to dress up. You don't have to do your hair. It's a place for the Dhamma, which is going way beyond the superficial appearance of human beings. So people come here and they say, oh, it's liberating. I don't have to think about these things. It doesn't matter. And if anyone's kept the 8 precepts, they know, dressing up, putting makeup, jewelry on, doing your hair, wearing fancy clothes no longer matters when you keep the 8 precepts. So these kind of ideas are what you can, in one way or another, gently introduce to the person who's suffering from cancer, and just encourage them to go beyond the superficial appearance of the body and say, of course, it's sad if they lose their hair, but it's temporary. Often people recover and they get their hair back. But even if they never get their hair back, it doesn't matter. There's more to life than hair.
Thank you. Thank you, Rampo. Let us all now invite the next participant, Vivedika. Vivedika. Thank you.
Sadhu. I'm Upul from Sri Lanka. It is very nice to be again one day, and I am inviting again VIT. If you can continue this talk like weekly, it would be great. And we were having this talk during the last week, last year. So it is very nice if you can continue to take it this year as well. My question is, Bante, in Sri Lanka, in textbook, they have mentioned that Buddha, Siddhartha has uh, left the castle in the night. During the time Devi Yashodhara was sleeping. Was that correct? And but I can see in the sutta that is different. The Siddhartha has left during the daytime, and that is my first question. What was the real thing, and what was the fact? And we need to do. We need to teach our children.
I can't hear the second part of the question, so maybe we'll leave that, but I'll answer the first part. I think the simple answer about the Buddha leaving home in the night or in the day is we don't know because we weren't there. The important point is the Buddha left home. They call it the Great Renunciation because obviously he had a wife and a child. It must have been very difficult to leave home. It wasn't done easily, or it wasn't a decision he would have taken lightly. I've always thought that probably leaving home in the middle of the night might have been the way he did it because he's the son of the ruling family. He knows everybody. Everyone is expecting a lot from him. So for him to just leave like that would have been a bit of a shock to everyone. And, they may have tried to stop him or pleaded with him. Or it would have been disturbing to everyone. So if he left in the middle of the night, kind of quietly left, he may have thought that was a better way to do it. I mean, whatever way you look at it, it's difficult because he's leaving his wife and child, which must have been hard on him. But then, as you know from previous lives, he's built up to this point where he can do that. And with a purpose, he wasn't leaving them forever, and he wasn't leaving them in the lurch in the way somebody who was irresponsible or negligent might do. His wife and child were looked after. They had plenty of food and support and all the comforts and the support of the family around them, and they were wealthy. So he wasn't leaving them destitute. And he had the idea to reach enlightenment and come back and teach them, which is exactly what he did. And he taught all his family members so that they became enlightened. So he gave them the greatest gift later on. But he was probably aware of how painful it was to leave at that point because nobody yet understood what he was doing or why. Nobody had the vision that he had in his mind. So it must have been a difficult time. So my guess is he probably would have thought, if he sneaks away at night, there's less fuss, less of a problem, and he could get away to the forest, and then they wake up in the morning, he's gone, which must have been a terrible thing for the family, but a smoother exit than if he'd left in the middle of the day when there'd been a lot of discussion and people would try to stop him maybe. But the actual answer is we don't know because we weren't there. But we do know he left home. It was a difficult thing, but it led on to eventually to his enlightenment, and we've all benefited from that. So, it's just one of those things we have to accept. He did leave home. It doesn't sound good, but it led to his enlightenment, and none of us are sad about that. We're all happy that the Buddha got enlightened and then brought all the teachings back for us to still benefit from today.
I'd like to now invite our friend from Queensland, Ochita.
Good evening, Bhante. Thank you very much for all your talks. I'm very fortunate to be able to join on Zoom and listen to these weekly. So today I felt brave enough to ask a question. My question is generally about meditation. I found lately when I sit down to meditate, it ends up being a bit of a debriefing session at the beginning where I'll sort of be thinking about the day or things I did or didn't do. And I was just wondering whether, because I've tried to sort of just ignore it
I think what you're describing is probably common to most people. Everyone has this problem. You come to meditate, you sit down, and straight away all the thoughts about what's gone on in your day will come up. Or else thoughts about what you're going to do tomorrow will come up, and so on. Thoughts about the past and the future will come up quite naturally. So one thing is to be very patient and accepting of this fact. Don't blame yourself. Don't feel too down just because your mind is full of all kinds of thoughts about stuff. But like you say, you need to plan what you're going to do. And really the time of meditation is the time to drop all this stuff. But when I say drop, only someone who's very mindful is going to be able to drop quickly. You might have to accept it will take a little bit of effort and time to allow your mind to settle into the breath, and so you can drop things. But you have to make this agreement with yourself first at the beginning of the meditation. You have to say, now is not the time to think through the problems of the day. Now is the time to settle down and let everything go and stay with the breath. And you have to trust in that. Trust that during the meditation it is fine to let go. You don't need to solve your problems, think about all this stuff. This is the time to let it go. And you can pick it up again later. So like you were saying, you could make a decision, I'm going to think about my day's stuff before I even start my meditation, so that when I do meditate, I can clearly say this is no longer the time to think about that stuff, and practice letting go over and over again, letting go until your mind settles down with the breath. Or you can say, well, I'll think about this later, so during the meditation I don't need to think about it. So you have a clear plan of action, how you're going to address this problem of all the thoughts about work and family and stuff coming up. And I would recommend picking a period of time for your meditation and just say during that period, I'm going to let go. Practice letting go. That means you have to put that effort into letting go of those thoughts, telling yourself, not now, this is not the time to think, this is about those issues. They may come up as thoughts, of course, memories, thoughts, but when they do, I'm going to quietly let them go and turn my attention to the breath and practice letting go. If they're really important, well, when I finish my meditation, then I'll address those issues, or I'll set aside time in my day to address those issues, but not during the meditation. Otherwise, you'll find your meditation just is overwhelmed by the desire to sort out problems, go through issues, plan for tomorrow, and it is no longer meditation in the real sense of the word. It's more just planning and thinking, and you're back to square one. We need to practice stopping doing that at least once a day. I would recommend have this time, which is the time for letting go. And it'll be difficult, of course. Your mind wants to think and plan and solve problems, of course, but that's why we meditate, to improve our level of mindfulness, to improve the ability to drop things and turn to the breath. But when you're dropping things, you don't have to get angry about it or upset by it. You're just saying this is a useful skill to develop, the ability to put things down, let things go, let things be, and not pick them up and go through them in my mind at this time. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go to the breath and keep returning to the breath to the point where I've truly let go of all this stuff. The more we do that, the better your mindfulness will be. Then when you come to address your problems, your mind will be in a better state, and you'll have a more objective way of looking at your problems. You'll be more calm, more detached. You might find your problems, some of them dissipate all by themselves. Other ones, you can get a good perspective on them once you're mindful.
Let's now invite Shanika from Melbourne.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you to all the organizers. Thank you, Ajahn. I have a question. I've never done the body part meditation on my own before. Generally, I do a breathing meditation or walking meditation. So, should I do it more often, or what would you recommend? Should we do it more often on our own? And also, how do you do it on other parts? Is it the same way you did with the hair Thank you.
Yeah, all the 32 parts you can treat in much the same way, focusing your attention on them, visualizing them, analyzing them, contemplating them as elements, as not self, as unattractive, developing these perceptions around each body part, and developing the ability to be mindful of each part. You can be mindful either reciting the word, hair, or kesa, or with the visual image, holding your attention on the visual image. And you can experiment with all 32 parts, and you may find there's one particular part that holds your attention more than others and you find easier. So yes, you can experiment doing this on your own, but you can do it in a very gentle, relaxed way. If you find it difficult, which most people do, you don't even have to close your eyes and sit in the meditation posture when you're beginning this. You can just sit in a chair and think about your body in this way. And also just notice your body. It's about becoming more mindfully aware of your body, say through your day. When you go to the toilet or have a shower or eating food, you can contemplate your body. As I was saying in the talk, you eat your food and you might notice a hair drops out in your food or in your kitchen or wherever you are. And you just contemplate, oh, that hair was once on top of my head, now it's down here, now I don't even care about it, I don't want it, I want to get rid of it. Those experiences are not necessarily going to happen in your meditation, they can happen at any time. Looking at your body as it is, noticing it when it gets dirty or smelly, noticing changes in your body. You look at an old picture and you look one way, and then you look in the mirror now. After 5 years, you look at a picture of 5 years ago, and then you look at yourself in the mirror. Just look and learn. Oh, I've changed. The hair is different. The skin is different. The size is different. Often we put on weight, but sometimes people lose weight. Aging takes place, skin wrinkles, and so on. You can investigate or contemplate the body in a very gentle, relaxed way like this, not always in meditation, but just observing your body, but now using Dhamma and developing insight into impermanence or the unattractiveness of the body in just very natural, ordinary situations. And then sometimes experiment with doing it as a meditation as well. And you might find if you're becoming more peaceful, then you can hold your attention on the body longer as a meditation object. You can go into it deeper. You can understand the body in this new way better. But, experiment, see what works. If it really doesn't work for you, you're finding it too difficult, fine. Well, you can do contemplation of the breath or developing metta. We always have some choice depending on how our mind is and how we're reacting to the meditation.
I'm conscious that it is quite late at your end. Would you be kind enough to take the last two questions?
Sure, yeah.
Right. Rekha, could you start your video, please? Rekha?
Yes, I've started my video. Good evening, Longpo. Yeah, Longpo, I have a question regarding non-self. Yeah, how do I actually understand that non-self better in terms of I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my feelings, and rather than understanding it, I take knowledge. Is there a way to really understand it correctly and deeply so that it really understand it by heart that it really yeah so I have some struggle trying to overcome this part. I hope you can advise, please. Thank you.
Well, when you come to understand not self in the heart, then it has to be because all the right factors and conditions are coming together. So your sila is established, samadhi is arising, the mind is in a wholesome state, it's calm, it's still, and then you're investigating the Dhamma, and your mind is coming to a realization so that it changes the way it looks at itself, whether you're looking at the body or thoughts or feelings. You're seeing these are phenomena that arise and pass away due to causes and conditions. You're observing that, you're witnessing that. At first, we meditate, we think a lot, but over time, as you develop the practice, maybe you don't need to think so much and you're just witnessing the way things are. So say with thoughts, how do you know thoughts are not self? Well, when you see impermanence of thoughts, thought arises, passes away, and then there's a space, it's gone, and then you maybe pick up another thought. But when you're observing that, witnessing a thought as impermanent, then the next reflection can be, well, it's gone. It's just a thought, a passing thought, arose, passed away, it's gone. It's not a self, it's not anything lasting or substantial, it doesn't have its own essence. It's just a passing phenomena. It's a thought that arose, pass away. Same with a feeling, same with memory, or the body. So like today we've been talking about the body. Say when you have a hair drop out of your head, or you cut your hair, or you just pull out a hair, or it drops, stop and just say, is that me? It's not, isn't it? It's not me. You're no longer seeing that hair as you, as a self. You now see it as just a bit of rubbish to be thrown away. That's seeing not self in action, and you don't need to think a lot about that. You're just witnessing hair is not self. It could be any part of the body, but hair is a really good one because we lose our hair or we cut our hair all the time, and you're just seeing, it's not self. Thoughts come and go, therefore they are not self, because they come and go. You don't have the same one thought in your mind all the time. You don't have the same hair on your head all the time. It grows and then it falls out, or you cut it. So you're training your mind in investigation, and with mindfulness, with wisdom, and your mind is peaceful, you can see things and know things without thinking about it. It becomes more intuitive awareness, just seeing and understanding or witnessing the way things are.
I believe that's the end of the questions and answers, so we have no more questions from the floor. This one, could you please make an announcement as to the timing of Mahapuja sessions on Friday and Saturday next week, so that everybody will know when to follow?
So next Friday and Saturday we're celebrating Magha Puja. So on the monastery Facebook page, beginning at 7 p.m. both days, Melbourne time, there'll be an evening program on Friday and Saturday for Magha Puja. You're welcome to join that. That's on Facebook. And then these Zoom sessions at 8 p.m. Melbourne time on a Sunday will continue throughout March as well. So every Sunday for the next 4 or 5 Sundays, there'll be a Zoom session on a Sunday night as well. So tonight we'll finish just paying respects to the Triple Gem, and we'll wish you all well.